the first time he has been on our campus, and he has flown here today to talk specifically with our Mount Wachusett students. So I want to introduce all of you to Ethan Fisher. Come on, Ethan, you come out. Ethan is a storytelling, mental health, and alcohol substance abuse keynote speaker. This is what he does for his living, but it's way more important than that. He is here to talk with you about the choices and decisions that we all make every day. His story has been written about in numerous books, including a New York Times best-selling leadership book, multiple newspaper articles, podcasts, radio interviews, and television shows, including headline news in CNN, for his life mission and purpose in helping others. We are gifted and blessed to have Ethan on our campus, spending this morning with all of you, and his commitment for you to live your best life. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Ethan.
Grab one of these mics at work. With hypnotic philosophies and deep ideologies, bending perpendicular lines of subatomic hyperboles, incorporating every word and verb that I've learned, spitting non-fictitious facts, stumbling acts get pinned by text, causing the brain to splatter. Blood splatters under nuclear matter. So no matter the geographical demographics, I spit lines for the intellectual minds. What? How many of you caught what I just said? Read a book. Just playing. All right, here's the deal. I'm not here to talk to you about the hundreds of thousands of poems and verses that I've written. I'm here to talk to you about my life, my choices and my consequences. You see, I've basically made every bad decision, every bad choice that you can make as a student and a student athlete. And I'm here to tell you my story. But before I get into my story, I want to be completely transparent with every single one of you. This keynote that you're about to see is mentally and physically exhausting. Why? Because every time that I give this speech or every time that I practice this speech, I have to relive moments in my life that I would rather forget. But I continue to tell this story because I know I'm making a difference. I've received thousands and thousands of letters from students and coaches and athletic directors and administration from all over the world who said I changed or saved their life. Like, how cool is that? This is my purpose. This is why I wake up every single day and take my first breath is to figure out how I'm going to get to my next event. This is what I live and breathe for, everything. I put every ounce of energy and resource into building this career that you're about to see. I love my job. But it's hard. But this job isn't just about me. It's about every single one of you in this audience. I want to challenge you for a second to think about this. Every one of us, myself included, are faced with an infinite amount of possibilities into who we're going to become in the next 3, 5, and 10 years down the road. And it starts with the choices and decisions that you make at this exact moment. That's heavy. It starts with the choices that you make at this exact moment. That's going to depend on who you are in the next 10 years of your life. So I challenge every audience I get in front of to think about every choice because it matters. Speaking of choice, did you know that 20% of the world's population was struggling with a mental health issue within the last 365 days? That's 20%. That's 1 in 5. Look around you. 20% were struggling with a mental health issue in the last 365 days, and that's according to the CDC. I didn't make this up. And guess what? That was before the global pandemic. And if you actually look at the research during the pandemic, you'll find anywhere between 40 and 60% of the world's population was struggling with a mental health issue. 40 to 60%. That is half of this room. Take a look around you. Half of you were struggling with some type of mental health issue during the last 365 days or 2.5 years of the pandemic. This is your first live audience in 3 years. This is an issue that we are going to face for the next 10 years of our life, and nobody is talking about it. This is my job. I wake up every day to figure out how to open up this conversation around mental health because half of the world, not millions, but billions of people struggle. So if you are struggling, it is okay to admit that you are struggling. Matter of fact, I struggled just as much as everyone else in this room. I've been telling people and audiences that I hit my third worst depression of my entire life during the pandemic. Third worst. And that's saying a lot because you're going to see I've been through a whole heck of a lot. And so I hit my third worst. Why? My entire job and livelihood and career was taken from me. I travel and speak all over the country, and I couldn't speak and travel because of the pandemic. My businesses and my organizations were shut down. I was working 60 hours a week with no paycheck for 6 months at a time, trying to keep my organizations open and afloat. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for Kathy up top, I don't know what I would have done during the pandemic. She kept me alive during the online presentations. And I'm thankful, Kathy, thank you. But it nearly destroyed my entire livelihood. So what did I do? I sat in my office downstairs in my basement, and I was mad and frustrated and angry and depressed and sad. I felt like an imposter because here I was, this successful speaker, and I'm not doing anything during the pandemic. And it started messing with my head. I got so sad and depressed that I stopped caring about the people around me. You see, I was so focused on keeping my organization going that I failed to pay attention to my wife. And I actually hit my first worst depression of my entire life back in February of 2022 because my wife asked for a divorce. This last 6 months has been the hardest 6 months of my life, and it was all because of the pandemic. But here's where it comes to choice. I made a decision during the pandemic to actually get help. I saw a therapist. I got on medication for the first time in almost 20 years. That is the difference between me now and the difference between when I was a college student like you. So you have a choice right now that if you are battling some type of mental health issue, depression, anxiety, cutting, bulimia, anorexia, go see a counselor, go see a therapist. It is okay. Do not feel afraid or ashamed because half of the world was struggling with something. I have a counselor. I talk to people because I know how bad it is. So you have a choice from this moment forward to make a decision on how you're going to handle your mental health battle. Because the reality is half of you are going through something. Now, like I said, before the pandemic, I was speaking all over the world. I had opportunities to fill out packed auditoriums. This picture right here had 3,000 students in there, packed it out. And I did that little freestyle at the beginning and my microphone broke. And so everybody was kind of staring at me like, what is going on with this dude? Like, that was so powerful, I broke a microphone. Like, how cool is that? Truth is, the battery just died. But I put this up here because this represents something other than the size of the school. This represents fear. How many of you are afraid of something? How many of you are afraid to admit that you're afraid of something? More hands, right? How many of you are afraid of heights? Yeah, me too. I'm terrified of heights. Matter of fact, this time last year, I was painting in my house with my ex-wife, and I'm on top of a ladder, and I'm going to our vaulted ceilings, and I'm trying to get to this corner, and she comes in and talks to me, and I start shaking on the ladder, and I turn down, and I yell at her, and I'm like, why are you talking to me? Because I was freaking out. Here I am on a 5-foot ladder, and she's talking to me, and I'm worried about falling on my neck or my legs or my back, and I'm breaking. I'm going to the hospital, and I have to have hospital bills. I had all these thousands of thoughts going through my head because I was fearful of being on top of a ladder. Now, what she didn't realize is that I was thinking like that. She looks at me and was like, dude, you're on a 5-foot ladder. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. But that's the thing about fear and anxiety. We have 65,000 thoughts going through our head. And so when you get latched onto one of those fears, you start thinking about those fears over and over and over. And it impacted how I handled my wife and I. But I bring this up because if you don't address your fears now as college students, they will follow you for the next 20, 30 years of your life. There are fears that I should have embraced and challenged in college that I didn't, and now they impact me today as a 43-year-old individual. Again, this comes down to choice. What are you going to do when that fear comes? Are you going to put your tail between your legs and run from it, or are you going to face that obstacle? So I try to challenge myself every couple of years. I got to face one of my fears. So guess what I did this time last year? I jumped out of a plane. I went skydiving. And I'm afraid to be on top of a ladder. So here I am, and I got video of this. I got the dude on my back, and he's making googly eyes and faces at me and making fun of me. And we're falling thousands of feet out of the sky, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs like, ah, like I'm afraid for my life. But then we land. And I see my aunt, my uncle, and my ex-wife, and they all landed, and they're jumping up for joy. And I'm sitting there going, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I wasn't even scared when I landed. I was more sick than anything. I didn't like the spinning. But that's the thing about fear. You build up all these thousands of thoughts of something that you're fearful or anxious of, and it's really not that big of a deal. And that's why I challenge you. If you are afraid of something, whether you're afraid to talk to somebody in your classroom, whether you're afraid to go to class on time, whether or not you're afraid to raise your hand in class, test yourself and challenge yourself, because when you face your fears, good things do happen. So a couple years ago, because I faced my fears, actually, in 2003, I had to bring this up. 2003, I was diagnosed with social anxiety. Anybody know what that's like? If you guys didn't notice, I sit in the back corners of these rooms. I don't like to be around people. I don't like to be in crowds. And I chose a career as a keynote speaker, over 150,000 students. Like, what is wrong with me? I jump out of planes and I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of people, and I'm in front of crowds all the time. But I say this because I've challenged myself, and I've learned to overcome and adapt to the situations that make me uncomfortable. So what are you going to do when those situations happen? And like I said, when you challenge yourself to fears, good things happen. I got invited to speak at UNLV. UNLV was one of my favorite college basketball programs growing up. I had an opportunity to tell my story. And the reason I get to speak to college athletics is I was a non-traditional college basketball player. I played college basketball at the age of 28, 29, and 30. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, I like it. I like it. What I really like is when I go to middle schools or high schools, because they're like, you play college basketball? Can you dunk? No. Can you touch the rim? No. Can you touch the net? How the heck did you play college basketball? And I was like, because your boy can go. I got skills. And so I love going to middle schools and high schools because they boost my ego, Rick, right? But then I go to college athletic programs, and guess what college basketball players usually say? Bro, you must suck. You must be the worst college basketball player in the country to play college basketball at 28, 29, and 30. You must have been the oldest dude in the country. I wasn't. I looked it up. There was some 72-year-old dude trying to play college basketball at the same time. But I was the second oldest. But they laugh and joke at me, and they're like, dude, you didn't even play at the NCAA Division I or Division II or the Division III. You played at the NAI level. Like, you must have been a water boy. And I looked at them and I'm like, man, I saw you guys play last night and you couldn't guard me. And they're like, what? This is some crazy speaker up here just talking out the side of his neck. Truth is, I didn't play college basketball at 28, 29, and 30 because I sucked. I played at that age because of the choices and decisions I made sitting in your seats. That little freestyle I do at the beginning of my events, I didn't write that when I was taking time off in between schools. I wrote that while I was in prison. Prison. Not probation, not parole, prison. Locked away from my family and friends and every single person that meant something to me. I spent 3 years of my life locked behind razor wire fences with armed guards and white brick walls and silver sinks. Sleeping on a green mattress, surrounded by some of the most negative people that you can imagine. I was locked up in a tier with a dude that killed 3 of his own family members over a bucket of catfish. Strangled out his own family over a bucket of catfish. And I am surrounded by people like that 24/7. I am a felon for the rest of my life. There are jobs and housing that I still can't get to this day. But I tell people all the time, I'll go back to prison in a heartbeat. I'll do another 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in those cells if I could take back what I did. I can't. This is life. There's no rewind button. There's no pause button. The moment that we all get up and leave this auditorium, we are faced with those choices. We are faced with our decisions. And I am stuck with mine until the day I die. And now you're thinking, why are we having orientation with some dude that's a convicted felon? Why would we listen to somebody like that? Truth is, I'm no different than any of you. This is my middle school picture. I haven't really got much taller or much stronger since then, but hey, this picture came on Facebook about 2.5 years ago and everybody started tagging my name. 8th grade was so much fun. We had a blast. Like all we did was play video games and play sports. What they didn't realize is I hated 8th grade. I hated middle school. I was popular. I knew everybody in every single grade. I played football, basketball, track, golf, soccer, wrestling, you name it, I did it. I had friends in every grade. But something clicked. I started comparing myself to other people. I started caring about what other people thought of me, how I looked, how I dressed, how I interacted. I was really shy and quiet, and I was afraid to talk to girls. And then all of a sudden I started getting this zitty complexion, and I was the last kid in my grade to get armpit hair and facial hair. So people would pick on me and make fun of me, even though I was this athlete. And I'd put on this false exterior that I'd be okay during the school day and school year, and I'd go to my practices. But then when I go home, I'd let those negative thoughts ruminate. And they'd start to get out of control, and I'd hate myself, and I doubted myself, and I loathed myself, and I couldn't stand who I was looking at myself in the mirror. And finally, it got to the point where I was at a fight with my parents, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs that I'm going to kill myself. And I grab a butcher knife, and I grab it, and I run out to the barn, and I'm getting ready to cut my wrist, and my parents stopped me. I don't know if it was just a cry for help, or if I actually would have gone through with it. What I do know is that there was something seriously wrong with me at that time. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s where we didn't even talk about mental health. Mental health wasn't even a term. Because if you talked about being sad or weak, people would make fun of you. They would clown you and laugh at you if you were sad or depressed. So what did I do? I kept it locked up inside, and I didn't tell anybody about it because I was embarrassed. I was ashamed, and I didn't even talk about it with my parents ever since. So what did I do like most people do? I kept all that depression, anxiety, and hate and all that stuff inside, and I locked it up deep inside. Now I skated by my middle school career. I started smoking weed my 8th grade year, and then I got to my high school career. I started drinking my junior year. People thought I was just drinking to have fun. They didn't realize I was drinking because I hated my life. They thought it was fish drinking on the weekends and having fun, but the reality was I was sneaking alcohol in my golf bag as the captain of the golf team, and I would drink during practice because I hated my life so much. But again, I locked up all those emotions, and nobody knew that I was dealing with so much pain and so much agony inside. They just thought I was this athlete. And I was voted most athletic in my high school. I had scholarships to do basketball, track, soccer, you name it. I could have done whatever I wanted in college. But nobody knew that I was dealing with all that stuff inside. So I hid it, just like the majority of the population does. Now, I was very fortunate that I got an opportunity to play college basketball. Now, I get to my first school, I isolate myself. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party. I'm doing everything I can to be a part of this program, because you can tell at my height that 5'10", 5'11", on a good day, 6 foot, and an actual brochure and the flyer. So let's go with that. Like, I get there and I have to be sober because I got to compete against dudes from all over the country. So here I am, I'm sober, I'm busting my tail, and everything's going good until it's not. You see, I started getting invited to these house parties and these dorm parties, because once you're a freshman college basketball player, people know who you are. Like, you're instantly popular. So I wanted friends, right? Everybody wants friends. So I start going out on the weekends, and I'm drinking on the weekends, and I'm socializing, I'm having fun. But after a couple of weeks, I start to realize I'm a freshman in college. I've got nobody telling me what to do. I can drink every single day. So I start drinking every day, and I'm partying, and I'm having fun. And before I realize it, I end up waking up at the end of second semester, and I fail out, and I lose my college basketball scholarship. I turned into such an alcoholic that I lost my college basketball scholarship. And let me put this in perspective. Less than 4% of all high school basketball players get a chance to play on college scholarship. 4%. And I threw that away because I'd rather drink and party than go to class. So what do? I sober up. I say, Mom, Dad, I need to come home and get my grades up because I want to play college basketball again the following year. Following year, I get another opportunity to play at another school. Guess what? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party the first couple of weeks of school. I'm busting my tail because I want to play college basketball. But then I hit one of those roadblocks. I hit one of those choices. And the coach and I don't see eye to eye, and he wants me to redshirt. Well, my attitude and ego take over. I'm like, Coach, man, I was better than any of the point guards you got here, and you want me to redshirt? I gave up on him. I gave up on my teammates, and I started drinking again. But now my drinking's even worse than it was at my last school. And before I realize it, I walk away a semester with a GPA of 0.000. I had 4 Fs on my transcript when I left that school. 4 Fs. I couldn't go back, didn't want to go back. So what do? I call my mom and dad and say, Mom, Dad, I need to come home and get my act together because I want to go play college basketball again the following year. Following year, I get another opportunity to go out to California. I get out there. Guess what? I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't party. I'm doing two-a-days. I'm busting my tail. I'm doing everything I can to be a part of this program. Like, this is the best coach I ever had. Played with Bill Russell, had an ABA championship ring. Like, this dude was legit. And I'm so excited to be out there, and I'm busting my tail. And he calls me into his office one day. And he's holding up a piece of paper. And it's my transcript from Eastern Wyoming. And he goes, Ethan, you have 4 Fs. You're academically ineligible. You can't play for us. Why didn't you tell me about this? And I played dumb and coy like a college student does. And I'm like, Coach, man, I quit after the second week. I didn't think it would matter. That's why I didn't even send you the transcripts. He goes, you know the rules. You're academically ineligible. I want you to stay here in redshirt, and we're going to get you a job in housing. I want you to be out here so you can play next year. Once he told me that, I gave up. And so I went from sober and busting my tail to drinking and partying, but now my drinking was even worse than at my last school. And then now I'm not just getting high. I'm doing ecstasy and coke and Vicodin and perks and any prescription pill I can get my hands on. I'm crushing them up. I'm snoring them in parties, and I'm going off the rails. And before I realize it, I'm sitting in the back of getaway cars with people who are robbing people at gunpoint, and I'm laughing because I'm so high that it didn't even matter. Now my mom hears what's going on, and she calls me. And I'll never forget this. She calls me and says, Ethan, you need to come home because you're going to end up dead or in jail. I remember hanging up that phone with my mom. And she didn't know this, but I made my mind up that I was going to kill myself. You see, what people don't tell you about drugs and alcohol is that they're depressants. So I was already depressed and suicidal before all that. And now here I am doing all these drugs. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to face the reality of going back home and people making fun of me for failing out of another school. So I remember calling up my buddy and told him to bring every drug that he had. And I took 7 pills of E, rolled up 2 blunts, laced it with coke, and smoked it. And I thought I was going to overdose. The next thing I know, I'm next to this train underneath this park bench, and I'm getting ready to jump in front of a train. And I pull out this wallet, this very wallet, with this picture of my newborn baby brother. Never seen his face, never heard him cry. This picture you're looking at right now is the only reason why I'm standing here today. I remember putting that picture back in my wallet and saying, Mom, Dad, I want to come home and see my baby brother. So I take the Greyhound bus home, and I go home, and I'm babysitting this dude, and I'm loving life. And I'm sobering up, and I'm getting my act together, and I'm like, man, I want to go play college basketball again. So the following year, I get another opportunity to play at another school, but long story short, guess what I start to do? I start drinking and partying again, and before I realize it, I fail out before I even get to enroll at the school. I lose an opportunity to play for an NCAA Division II national championship team. They ended up winning the NCAA Division II national championship, and I'm getting drunk and high on a bender in San Diego, and I say, how am I going to play for them next year? So I go home to my parents after another failed attempt, and I say, man, I'm going to go play college basketball again, and I get another opportunity at an even bigger school. This is my last chance to play Division I basketball. Guess what I do? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party. I do everything I can to be a part of this program. I'm busting my tail. I'm doing two-a-days. I'm doing point guard drills, shooting guard drills. I'm doing everything until the coaches are kicking me out of the office or out of the gym. Until one day the coach calls me into his office and says, hey, we need to talk. You see, I'm at another one of those roadblocks, another one of those choices. He says, Ethan, you need to change the way you play, or otherwise you're not going to play. You have too much of an ego and an attitude. I'm like, Coach, I'm the best player you got here, and you don't want me to play that way? I'm going to go back to the way I was. So what did I start doing? I went back to drinking. I went back to drugging, and now it's even worse than it was at my last schools, and I'm sitting there drinking every single night. And before I wake up, I have a 1.86 GPA. 1.86 GPA after I just burnt out my 5th school and my last chance to play Division I basketball. Now I'll never forget this moment. I was suicidal again. See, that's the thing about mental health. You can beat it for a little bit of time, but if you don't continue to work the programs and work your toolboxes, it will continue to follow you. So here I am at the end of the semester and I'm suicidal again. And I'm so embarrassed about losing my opportunity to play. I call my dad at the bottom of Lawrence Hall, the dorm that I was living in. And I call him on this payphone. I'm like, hey, Pops, man, I can't do this. I don't want to live anymore. And it's the first time he ever talked about emotions. He said, Ethan, there's something wrong with you. You need to go see a psychologist. And it was the first time I listened to my dad. Now, here's the thing. This is a two-step process because I listened to my dad and I went and got help. Here's the reality of most of you in this room. You will never seek help because 2/3 of all college students who are suffering from depression will not seek help. Make it even worse. There was a student survey with 4,000 of you taken during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, and they found out that a certain percentage of college students, just like yourselves, had seriously considered suicide during the pandemic. I thought it might have been 5% or 10%. It was 26% of the students surveyed had seriously considered suicide during the pandemic. Now, how many of you went out and got help if you were dealing with that thought process? How many of you actually went and got a counselor or told somebody that you were struggling? Think about that. Out of 4,000 students, that means 1,000 students had seriously considered taking their life because of the height of the pandemic was so tough on everybody. You see, I did the first step. I went and got help. The second step is to listen to your counselors. Well, guess what? I didn't listen to my counselors. And I'll never forget, I went into my intake and I'm bobbing and weaving in and out of doorways because I didn't want people to recognize me. You know, I'm going into the counseling office and I had my hoodie on and my headphones on and my hat to the front because I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't want people to recognize me. And I'll never forget going in and doing my intake. She's like, Ethan, you're an alcoholic. You have an addictive personality. You got social anxiety and you're a manic depressive. Now, I didn't know what any of that meant. And she goes, Ethan, I have one rule. I'm going to put you on medication and these pills, but please do not drink. Do not drink while you take these medications. Do you think I listened to her? No, I didn't. I kept drinking, I kept smoking, and before I realized it, I woke up with a 0.43 GPA, 0.43. I blacked out for an entire semester, and I only remember 2 or 3 days out of that entire semester because I was taking pills and drinking and not listening to my counselor. And so I beg and plead everybody in here that if you go seek help, that you listen to those trained professionals because they're there to save your life. I wish beyond a shadow of a doubt that I would have listened to my counselor at this point in time because my life only got worse. So what do? I leave this school and I have an opportunity to go play college basketball again, but I get invited to a house party and this screen's black on purpose. And I want everybody in here to close your eyes for the next couple minutes. I want you to visualize the people who are sitting next to you. Nobody's going to mess with you. I want you to picture the classmates that you're sitting with. Now your friends back home, the ones you went to middle school, high school, college with, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, uncles, cousins, your grandparents, your parents, anybody that took care of you and made you smile at some point. Now think of a man named Bill. Now, Bill's 57 years old. He's got gray hair, big, thick gray beard, big, thick glasses. And he's been married to the same woman for over 30 years. And they have a daughter together who ends up having 2 of her own. So Bill and his wife are grandparents to 2 grandbabies. And they're retired and they love their life. And Bill's out stargazing one night in his white Oldsmobile. Now I want you to think about one of your friends sitting next to you. You got invited to one of the house parties or off-campus parties, and you go with one of your friends and they're acting a little off or a little strange and they drank something or took something, but you make this mental note that you got to stop them or find them a couple hours later and you can't find them. Now Bill's in his white Oldsmobile at 1:15 in the morning thinking about life, and all of a sudden, wham, open them. That friend that's sitting next to you that you were just thinking about, that was me. I went to a house party with some of my friends that I've known since kindergarten. And they said I started drinking and acting weird. And I blacked out. I woke up in a hospital after a 24-hour blackout and had no idea why I was in there. A nurse comes in. She's like, do you know what you did last night? No, it wasn't good. Second nurse comes in. Do you know what you did last night? No. You drunk drove and you killed somebody. I told you at the beginning of this speech that this isn't easy for me. Because I have to relive this moment over and over and over again. And there's days that I can't cry, and there's days that I just lose it. Bill's not here because of me and because of my choices around alcohol. Bill didn't see my Suburban coming 72 miles an hour down the wrong side of a 4-lane road. I hit Bill in his white Oldsmobile and I killed him instantly. I drove 150 feet from the scene of the crime until the cops came and pulled me out at gunpoint because I had no idea that I was even in an accident. Every 53 minutes, somebody is killed by a drunk driver in this country. That means one more person has died by the time I'm done with this story. To make it worse, every 15 minutes, somebody is killed by a drunk driver, a distracted driver, or somebody that's high and driving. That means 4 more people have died by the time I'm done with this story. Now, you don't have to have a show of hands, but how many of you have ridden home with somebody that had been drinking and driving? How many of you have been in a car while somebody's texting and driving or vaping and driving? A large percentage of you, and this could happen to any one of you. It could be the first time you drink. It could be the second time. It could be the 50th time that you drink. But it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what school you go to or what religion you believe in or how much money you have in your bank account. This can happen to any one of you, and it starts with the choices and decisions that you make at this exact moment. I was a college student who thought he was untouchable. I didn't think anything bad would ever happen to me. But here's the thing about life when you wake up. I sat in that prison cell or in that hospital bed, and I had 3 choices. 1, suicide. 2, flee. 3, God. God told me to handle my responsibilities. And from that moment forward, I've done everything in my power to be a better person and a better human being. I have worked so hard since that moment in 2003 to be a better person. Now, I knew I was going to prison. I deserved to go to prison. I didn't do enough time in prison. I tell people that all the time because you can't put a time on somebody's life. But I sat in those prison cells for 3 years and I volunteered for every single program that I could. I went to the military boot camp. I fought fires. I took college courses. I did everything in my power to be a better person. But when I hit my last prison, I told myself I would never go back. Because after 3 years of being surrounded by negative people and people that don't care about you or anybody else, you have nothing but positive energy and vibes when you get released. And so after I got released to the halfway house, after 3 years of being surrounded by those negative people, I had this crazy desire that I was going to change. Like, I don't just wear this shirt for no reason at all. You guys ever seen the movie The Hulk? Yeah. So when you get surrounded by negative people for 3 years and you're stuck inside of a penitentiary and you just have all these doubters and naysayers and haters who think you're going to be nothing with your life when you get out of prison, I had this crazy desire that I was going to go back to school and finish my college degree after being stuck in the prison cell and after failing out of 5 different college basketball programs. I had this desire that I was going to go back to my local community college and change my life. So the whole point of the Hulk is, you guys ever seen like Bruce Banner when he's a skinny, goofy, nerdy dude? That's how I was going into prison. Like I do the Kevin Hart thing, like, oh my God, please somebody don't shank me. I don't want to get hurt. Because I was terrified when I went into prison. But when you get released after being in prison, you have this thing called penitentiary glow. So when I got released, I was walking around the streets like, oh my gosh, feeling like the Hulk, like, please, somebody test me. I will bust through any person on this planet that's going to stop me from what I'm about to achieve. See, I had this crazy desire that I was going to change who I was as a person. I had this crazy desire that I was going to go back and get my college degrees and prove all those doubters and naysayers and haters wrong, because I had hundreds of them talking bad about me, thinking that I was going to be nothing but an alcoholic, a flunky, and a druggie. Guess what? Every time I do this speech, I think about every single one of those doubters that thought I couldn't do this. I've had people tell me I would never be a speaker. I've had people to tell me I would never play college basketball. I've had people that told me I would never graduate college. Well, guess what? I had the desire to prove to all of them wrong. So after 3 years of being in prison, guess what I told myself? I'm going back. I need every single piece of college education I can get, because I'm a convicted felon. So I need education. I need a college degree. So I went back to college. But I also went back and played college basketball. What? That's why I played college basketball at 28, 29, and 30. Not because I sucked, because I came fresh out of state penitentiary. I don't think you guys can grasp that. I actually ran the numbers. It's like 0.00008% a chance of me actually playing college basketball after all that I've been through. I went back and played college basketball as an inmate of Colorado. Never been done before in the state of Colorado. Why? Because I had the desire to change, and I had the desire that I wasn't going to let anybody stop me from achieving my goals and my dreams. I was sitting in your seats as a community college member, and I told myself I would never give up on any of my hopes and dreams. So I finished my college basketball career, and I got to play college basketball. I didn't get to travel with my team, but I got to play my seasons out. But basketball was easy for me. I was all conference tournament MVP, and I didn't even play in half the games. My number one priority when I got released was to go back to school. So in my first 2 years after being released from prison, I went and got my first bachelor degree, and I graduated magna cum laude with a 3.75. Yeah. That's pretty cool, right? Considering I had a GPA of 0.000 a couple minutes ago, right? If I can do that, how many of you can do that? But here's the thing about success. You get greedy. So the next year, as an assistant coach at the university with a full-time 40-an-hour-a-week job, while taking anywhere between 12 and 24 and a half credits a trimester, so double full-time, I went and got a second bachelor degree with 3 minors, and I graduated with a 4.0. What? I slept less than 4 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 7 years straight, because I went in and I got my master's with honors after that, and I coached college basketball as well. But if I can do that, how many of you can do that? I was also awarded the Entrepreneur Student of the Year award for the business plan that I wrote in prison with a bunch of inmates and convicts. Like, I had ambition. I had desire that nobody was going to stop me from what I was going to do. But you guys can kind of tell I have an ego, right? I have a little, I'm really a humble guy, I really am. But when I get on this stage, just like on a basketball court, I turn into somebody different. It's like an alter ego. How many of you have your name engraved on a park bench at the university? All eyes on me. What's up? All right, hold up. I was awarded the President's Award. The highest academic achievement you can get on any college campus. I was awarded for that, for my grades and my community support and everything that I did on the campus to help other people get better at their lives. Not because of my basketball and my jump shot. I earned that. If I can do that, how many of you can do that? I guarantee you everyone in this room is smarter than I am. One thing I promise you though, I don't know anybody in here that'll outwork me. I will outwork any person when it comes to something that I put my mind to. That is the difference between me and all the geniuses out there that are way smarter than I am. I will outwork every person that I can to do what I believe in. How many of you are going to outwork the person sitting next to you to be the next President Award winner on this campus or the next SGA president on this campus? Any one of you can do this. If I can do this, every one of you can. But in 2014, I had to make a decision. 2014, I had an opportunity to play professional basketball. I got released from prison off of parole April 1st of 2014. I'll never forget the day, and I had a chance to go play pro. My entire livelihood and dream of playing pro was sitting in front of my face. and I had an opportunity to speak for USA Basketball on the same weekend I was supposed to leave. Guess what I chose? I chose this career over finishing out my basketball dreams because this means so much more to me than playing the game of basketball. This is my purpose. This is why I'm supposed to be here. And I haven't looked back. And I've worked my tail off. And I will give you these 5 things. These are my 5 keys to success that you guys can take back, that I've used every single day of my life to get through all the stuff that you guys have seen. These 5 things I live by every single day of my life. And you don't have to go in a linear fashion. This is just any which way that you want. But these 5 things I apply every single day. And I promise you, if you do the same, you can change who you are as a person, as a student, as a human being. Number 1, accountability. I will never blame anybody for getting me drunk or high. That's on me. I made those choices. I made those decisions. I have to live with Bill's accident. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I've taken full accountability of what I did and what I've caused. And it's not easy. I don't blame my wife for my divorce. I could have made choices during the pandemic that would have made me pay attention to her versus paying attention to my work. Never blame anybody for your situation in life, because you have the power to change every single second of every day who you are based off of accountability. Number 2, set goals. I don't care if you got small goals, big audacious goals, but set goals. There's scientific research showing that if you actually write down your goals, you are 30 times more likely to achieve your goals. 30 times just by writing them down. I've got 5 goal boards in my offices. I got daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals. I got goals for the next 25 years of my life, and I see them every single day. And I say, how am I going to get to these goals? Because when you see them and you visualize them, it'll keep you on the right path. So I stick to my goals no matter how hard they are, how big and audacious they are, because I know that if I have goals written down, I will likely to achieve them. Write them down. Number 3, this entire speech, everything that we've been talking about is based off a choice. Every one of you has a choice right now in which direction you take your life. Like, my hope is that you guys are all going to be challenged and go back and go like, man, I need to make better choices around my friends and the alcohol I drink or the drugs I do or the mental health that I talk about. I need to find counseling. I need to find therapy. That is a choice. Or you can make a decision and go, oh, great story. Dude's been through a lot. I don't drink like that. I don't smoke like that. I don't have depression like that. I don't need help. That's a decision that you're going to make right now, and you're not going to realize the consequences of that until 5, 10 years down the road. So I challenge you to think about every choice you make, because it does have unintended consequences, whether you realize it or not. Number 4 is perseverance. You are always going to have doubters. You're always going to have naysayers. You're always going to have people telling you you're not good enough or smart enough. You're always going to have people trying to bring you down. And a lot of times it's your family and friends that try to do so. How many of you have that desire and that perseverance inside to not listen to those haters, not listen to those doubters? How many of you are willing to go through every single obstacle in order to achieve your goals? I know I am. I see a couple hands. You guys are too. But you're always going to have people telling you you're not capable of doing something. So what do you have inside that is going to make you persevere through that? And number 5 is faith. I don't care if you believe in Buddha or Jesus or Allah or anything in between. But if you have faith in who you are as a person, and you have faith in the choices and decisions that you make, and you have faith in why you set your goals, and you have faith in your purpose, nobody will stop you. I have faith every single day that this is my job and my career and my purpose and my passion. This is why I wake up every single day. I had faith during the pandemic when everything was taken from me, that I kept working and I kept grinding, and I wasn't going to give up on my dreams. I had faith every single day that I sat in that basement office and I worked 60 hours a week, 70 hours sometimes, with no paycheck for 6 months, grinding, because I had faith that this is why I was supposed to keep working. So have faith in who you are as a person, and I promise you, nobody will stop you from achieving what your purpose is. Now, here's the thing. I can leave you right now and we could be all happy and excited, like, oh my gosh, Faith, this is so cool. Like, I learned a lot. But that's not life. All it takes is one bad decision, one bad choice, to live with lifelong consequences. Thank you.